Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in at 8 p.m. on this Tuesday night with this little interactive audience live stream with me, the usual criminal, and you, my usual or hopefully unusual audience, just to talk nonsense and shoot the breeze. And just, I've got a conspiracy theory. I've got a very good conspiracy theory about COVID that I spend a lot of time thinking about, and I would love to hear your input on it. But first things first, hellos to Mr. McFarlane, BavZ307, Grant Hockley, and a whole bunch of other people that are probably going to start tuning in shortly, just waiting for everyone to get here, and then we'll get cracking with my nutcase conspiracy theory, because I am a nutcase, apparently. If you want to wait for the vaccine to first kind of do its thing and see how people react to it and spend about a year figuring out if you want to get the jab or not, that now makes you an anti-vaxxer, apparently. That's the new thing. There's also a couple of weird things that are extreme points of view, like not wanting to put people into prison camp for breaking lockdown regulations, like they are, like they are concentration camp inmates. That's like not cool. Apparently, if you don't want that to happen, if you don't want to stick people into a rape cage for not wearing a mask, you're a bad person. You want grandma to die. And I can't tell you how tired I am of that line. But we'll get to that. We'll get to all these fun, amazing, lekker talking points later, because I'm here having a glass of wine, which I'm still allowed to have. Apparently, we haven't banned drinking. We've just banned making a living from producing and selling the stuff. But that's a whole nother story. The Brew, good evening. Andrea, good evening. Dion, Robert, Bo, Herman, Jean, Martin, and Charles, whom I met today for the first time, and I can confirm this. I am indeed shorter in real life than... Actually, wait a second, okay? I don't know how tall you people think I am, but I'm not particularly tall at all. So Pule can confirm that. JC can confirm that. And I'm not sure who else on the stream has met me in real life, but they can also confirm that without too much of a thing. I'm slightly taller than my dog, which is not difficult. But I think there's enough of you good folks to bore with my conspiracy theory. Willem, goeienaand. Werner, good to see you here. And Fourth Industrial Revolution, we're coming to that. Bernard, where's Bernard? Bernard, good evening, sir. You did break me a little bit, but I'm getting stronger. You're going to have to try harder to break me next time. That sounds creepily inappropriate and possibly sexual, which is not the context with Bernard at all, by the way. Although if I had to be in a homosexual relationship with somebody, Bernard would probably be in my top 10 list, because he'll buy me lots of guns, cigars, and whiskey, which is a really good plus point for me, by the way, guys, if you had to know. Cole, thank you for joining in from your workshop. That's really cool. Mr. Panisher, goeienaand, Melanie, or Melanie. I can do that bilingually. Cheers, Dylan. Thank you. You're being far too kind, but I'll take the compliment wherever they come from. Hello, Christos. Thank you for tuning in from Crete. It's really good to see you. No, I'm not that grumpy. My dog's cuter than me. And Ahmed from Algeria. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Okay, so let me just get straight into it. So here's my conspiracy theory. There's one country out of all of the countries that has benefited massively from the global reaction to the pandemic. And that's China. For the very simple reason that all China's traditional enemies and opponents find themselves severely weakened by their response to this pandemic, which means China has significantly reduced opposition to whatever geopolitical objectives they have, them expanding their sphere of influence, how they've been bullying other countries in Asia. Because let's do a quick summary of nations that China is in direct open conflict with. Japan, the Philippines, Taiwan, India, to name a few. Australia, they're having a big punch up with the Aussies now as well. They've benefited hugely from this because they've crippled the economies of almost the entire West. So think about it this way. The virus breaks out in Wuhan. They lock Wuhan down. And we hear these reports of people dying in the streets of Wuhan. We hear reports of an entire city of 20 million people being put under lockdown by the Chinese authorities as a desperate measure to curtail this virus spread, right? Now, Wuhan, 20 million people. It's an impressive number. It's also about 1.73% of the total Chinese population, which in the grand scheme of things, you shut that down for a couple of weeks. It's not a biggie. It looks massive from the outside, but once you start thinking about it, that's actually not a significant population proportion at all. Also, from everything I've heard from the Wuhan lockdown, from people that were actually there and were locked down, the Wuhan lockdown was a lot softer than our hard lockdown. People could still go outside to exercise. They could walk their dogs. They could go to work. They could buy alcohol. They could buy cigarettes. It wasn't remotely as debilitating as our lockdown was, but it was advertised as this massive thing. And the Chinese aren't stupid. The CCP isn't stupid. So they know the first people that get sick in a Western nation like Italy being a democratic nation, most liberal democracies in the West, you are an elected official, which means you're a vote maximizing agent, which means if you do anything to piss the electorate off, you're probably not going to win the next election and your opposition is going to get voted in, which means politicians, as a rule, in liberal democracies, take the path of least resistance almost always, and they are incredibly cowardly, intellectually and otherwise. So you're dealing with a bunch of cowardly, spineless people who always take the easiest road because they really don't want to stir up controversy. So now you are sitting as a prime minister of Italy. You have this viral outbreak. A couple of old people are dying, or people are dying for real. And you have the story about the Wuhan virus coming through. What do? Are you going to go and say, you know what, I'm going to do nothing, do the rational thing, sit on my hands, do nothing, monitor the situation, and I'm going to issue recommendations as we learn and discover what we're dealing with without taking drastic action? Or are you going to panic because of all the propaganda you've seen and read, lock down hard, force people into this dystopian nightmare, knowing that at least if you do that and people then die, people can't point a finger at you saying, oh, I did nothing. Because then you can at least stand back and say, I did a lot. Look, I locked the entire economy down. I behaved decisively. And when the Italians did it, the Belgians did. When the Belgians did it, the Germans did. And so hard rolling lockdowns hit all across Western Europe and Western liberal democracies, except for Sweden and most of Scandinavia outside Denmark. Norway and Finland didn't have really hard lockdowns from what I've heard. They were called lockdowns, but they weren't really lockdowns. So instantly these people panic and they cripple themselves and their economies. And they just have waves upon waves coming through. And before anyone could wipe the shit out of their eyes, you've wiped out decades of economic growth. I mean, the UK reportedly had suffered its most debilitating productivity collapse in 370 years, which means its worst economic collapse in industrial history, since the Industrial Revolution started. China just took everyone out at the ankles in the space of a year. And sure, you can say, yeah, but, this means China took out their own trade partners, which is bad for China, right? It's like, yeah, if China is worried about trade and free trade, remember, China isn't governed by the Free Trade Party or the Capitalist Party. China is governed by the Communist Party. They would more than happy sacrifice free trade, economic growth, all these good things. I mean, Jack Ma, one of the world's richest people that built Alibaba, a massive multinational super retailer, he was halfway critical of the Chinese authority. He's now disappeared and they've nationalized his company overnight. The Chinese don't give a fuck about free trade or about doing what's good for their economy. They're ideologically driven. They want to expand their realm of power, influence. They've proven this over and over again through their actions, through their words, through what they do, say, how they act towards their neighbors. And if they can weaken their ideological enemies in any way, and get away with it and strengthen their own position by doing that, why wouldn't they do it? potentially, my conspiracy theory is that this has been a wonderful psychological operation by China to destroy productive capacity in economies in the West, which means Western nations cannot respond to Chinese aggression remotely as effectively as they could before this pandemic and the worldwide responses. I might be talking absolute rubbish. You're welcome to tell me I'm talking rubbish. I'm curious to hear your views on it and what you think. But that's my story. So sorry, let me just go through the comments a little bit, because I'll be Bernard's trophy wife any day. Bernard, that's not a proposal. Sorry, just going to scroll through and respond to you guys. I think JC and Werner are on the same level. Louise, good evening. Graham, I think, perfectly summarizes my thoughts and feelings on this matter. Johan, that's the question I think we all should be asking. Yeah, there's still miraculous in 80,000 cases. That makes complete sense, right? In a nation of over 1 billion people, that the Chinese just have their shit under control, densely populated and hygienic. Yet, they've got it waxed where everyone else just can't get it under control, right? Good evening, Valerie. How are you doing? Indeed, they did. They had a massive Wuhan, had a massive party time. Massive party time. Yolanda, I think life after the inauguration tomorrow and next few days will bring clarity. Indeed it will. I have a very, very, very sneaky suspicion that we'll see some attempt at return to normality after the Biden inauguration, without, of course, letting go of the newfound authoritarian toys that they've brought out to play and have been using on all of us. I mean, like this vaccination ID cuck that we're now looking at implementing. Not that we would ever. This is a wonderful thing of being governed by corrupt, incompetent people who are Luddites and barely literate. Is they're going to struggle to put really authoritarian stuff through. Herman gave me a super chat. Herman just super chats me to shit on me, but fair point. We do need to talk, sir. We do need to talk, and thank you for the super chat, and thank you to everyone who gives me super chats, who donates on the Zapper, the SnapScan, who's been really cool in supporting the channel, helping me cover my costs of hosting the website and all that sort of stuff, and buying me whiskey. I really appreciate it. And for those interested, I'll do a quick merch plug in the Zapper a bit and SnapScan a bit later. But let me first get back to business and putting your guys' comments back up and answering them. There was something else I wanted to say, but my rant on China, or rather my unpacking of China, was one of the things that sidetracked me a bit. Most nations are indebted to China, so with collapsed economies, they cannot pay China back, and that allows China more control over those nations. Well, that's also a very true thing. China is both a massive lender and a massive borrower, and the proportions I can't quite remember anymore, but they are most certainly they are a superpower, and they might be the only superpower left after the West has succeeded in self-destructing. Well, them and Russia to a degree, and if India can pull their socks up, they might be the next big thing too. But yeah, I don't have a lot of hope for Western liberal democracies after this, outside of maybe Scandinavia. The Germans are putting people, or threatening to put people who repeatedly break their pandemic quarantine regulation stuff in prison camps. Now, I mean, I don't care who you are. To put people in a camp under police guard and deprive them arbitrarily of their freedom without trial for an indefinite period, that's called a concentration camp. Except that concentration camps, it's shocking. And it's weird to sit in 2020 and go, we've got prison camps in Germany again. It's like, it's surreal, and it's almost a joke. It is almost a joke, but no one is laughing. Corona is boring. Can't we talk about lack of service delivery in towns or swap out cook sister recipes? I believe so, because I don't want to just talk COVID. COVID is boring. I'm so sick of it, to be honest. If it didn't have such a massive impact, I think, on everyone's life, it would not even be worth talking about. But I mean, stupid things like people say to me, do I know of any beaches they can go to where they can have a quick swim without getting arrested? How's that for a crazy conversation to have? It's like, yeah, you can now be put in handcuffs and thrown in the back of a police van, just because you want to go for a swim. That's a bit dystopian, isn't it? A bit nightmarish. Yeah. Look, it hasn't been passed yet either. It has most certainly not become a thing yet. It's being discussed and it's being considered, which is bad enough. The fact that actual politicians are considering this cuck. It's like the tone deafness coming out of Germany itself is amazing. Pfizer's own former VP of respiratory called the test a scam. Yeah, there's so much. It's impossible to keep up with everything. It is absolutely impossible. Is Graham flirting in my... Hang on, where'd that comment go? Graham? Mike, I would love to say, yeah, that's going to stay up there for a little bit just because I'm that way. Yes, but our relationship hasn't quite progressed this far yet, but we can work on it. We can definitely work on it. Herman, I don't even know. I don't think my brain has the capacity to, because shit that used to be off the charts conspiracy theories are now legitimate concerns. It's amazing how Alex Jones is more correct about things than most other people. It's frightening. By the way, hello, Gentle Inflatables. Hello, Nadine. Hello, Des. Dylan. It's not entirely unheard of that authoritarian governments would sacrifice some of their own people to gain more control. The Nazi Party did it when they bombed one of their own buildings, if I'm not mistaken, and I think the Stalins is the same thing. Oh, look, the communists, the best description of this is the Mao's Great Leap Forward, which coincidentally was China again. It happens more often than I think people, or has happened more often than I think people think. Hello, Milani. I think we definitely need to work in a cook sister recipe section on the show. Yeah, I didn't mean to like scaremonger anybody. That is just my own wacko conspiracy theory. It's something that I look at and it makes sense in my twisted little brain. And I'm not always the most linear thinking person. I've got my quirks, but I definitely don't see myself as a nutcase or a conspiracy theorist. Let me just see what else you guys are saying. The vaccine must just be given to government. What will we do with these important people in the prison? Exactly. What makes it different is that you can not talk or rant about your topic, or else you might not get a visa. Yeah, I know, right? But I'm okay not getting a visa. I'm okay saving my money, not traveling the world, buying more guns, buying more ammo, buying more accessories, and just having a whale of a time enjoying simpler things. Because they're not going to take my guns away, because I'm not going to let them. Yeah, no. What I'm doing is I'm keeping the lights in the background off because I'm streaming while standing at the kitchen counter, and the rest of the house isn't particularly photogenic at the moment. Not that I am. I'm a terrible model. I've been told this repeatedly, that I should not model my own merchandise, which I agree with. So if any of you know of an impressionable model that would be stupid enough to wear my stuff and be photographed in it, and therefore probably end what remains of their careers, send them my way, please. I don't know how I'm going to pay them. I have to pay them in illicit alcohol or something, but we'll work out a deal. We'll work out some sort of a deal. Sorry, guys. I'm just scrolling down through. Yeah, I am kind of sick of sickness. I'm sick of I think it as a topic. God, it's been over a year of us just being assailed day and out. And I think the sad thing for me is when I see kids that see everything as hand sanitizer, and that kids that have been so scared by their parents that they're terrified of going out, that they're terrified of other children, that they're terrified of animals and everything that moves. I'm like, if that's the way you're raising your kids, and I'm not a parent, and do correct me if you think I'm talking shit, but if you're raising your kids to be scared, isn't that just a form of child abuse? Right? Like, why would you want them to be perma-terrified of stuff? That's not how kids should be. It's okay for a kid to be scared of the non-existent monster under the bed. And it's normal for kids to be scared of creepy crawlies. And it's normal for kids to be scared of weird stuff that you grow out of as an adult. But when you as a parent are scared and you're making your children fearful of everything out there, that's just to me like a horrible thing to see. I really don't like it, and I'm seeing too much of it. Okay, so this story, let's actually change topics and talk gun stuff, because I like talking gun stuff. So a guy got boxed in near the Voortrekker Monument. I think I know, well, not near the Voortrekker Monument. Was it either near the monument or near Monument Park in Pretoria? He was in a Porsche, got boxed in by guys who tried hijacking him. One of the guys approached his window with a drawn firearm, and the driver of the Porsche drew his own gun, shot and killed the would-be hijacker. The other guys then fled the scene. Dead guy with gun remained on scene. And there were stories in News 24 about it. I see today they said his shooting may be justified and they're not going to bring charges against him. Like, look, okay, just read through the lines in a sense of no one is going to say the shooting's justified, because apart from the people on the scene, the police spokesperson has no fucking clue what happened there. So they're not going to say any strong statements. The fact that a case of murder is being investigated is not entirely abnormal either. In my defense of shooting, a murder docket was opened. I was never charged with murder. It's a very different thing to charging someone with murder versus investigating murder. And I'm not trying to say this as a mean thing, but I don't know if the average police officer has the nuance to deal with a situation where people get shot with the required sensitivity and go, yeah, we'll open an inquest docket because this probably wasn't a murder, so we're not treating it as a murder investigation. We're treating it as an inquest investigation until such time as we find or uncover evidence that points that there was foul play here, and then we're going to change the angle a bit. It's almost like a blank thing now. Like, okay, you someone got shot, we just do murder. But it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of horrible stories here from police college. One of the worst ones I heard from a serving member who at least did the training for his own platoon as such. What happens is these people get put in a room. They've never touched guns before, and they just get left alone with guns on the table, and they kind of familiarize themselves. And sometimes these guns come from the armory, and sometimes they still have ammunition in them, which they shouldn't, because the people who are supposed to unload and check them are student police officers as well, because the armorer doesn't want to do it himself. And then shots go off, and the holes in these training department rooms have bullet holes in them, and sometimes police trainees get shot by other police trainees who are fucking around with the guns. So if that's the level of training quality that is, as a general rule, happening at police colleges across the country, then I'm not surprised that the concept of inquest versus murder investigation / docket is entirely lost on them. But I mean, if a dead guy is lying there with a gun next to him, right next to the open door of the vehicle whose occupant claims that this person approached his window with a drawn gun in an attempt to either hijack him or kidnap him, and then was shot because he had the attack. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Like, yeah, this guy didn't drive up to the guy, shoot him, and then plant a gun on him. That's entirely fucking unlikely, especially if there are other witnesses, because it happened in a public place in broad daylight. So, yeah, I don't think that's the thing. With my case itself, knife wielding person under the influence of tick, I suspect, never saw the toxicology reports, tried stabbing another person to death in front of me, and I intervened, and the intervention resulted in the knife wielding attacker dying on the scene. And yeah, it's pretty much there's not really much to unpack. I learned a lot of EDC lessons from the event, but ultimately that everything you read about that what happens in a defensive shooting with the adrenaline dump, which is the auditory exclusion, the tunnel vision, the sensation that time is passing slower than it really is, all that stuff is real and it very much happens. And it really fucks up your system afterwards because your cognitive functioning is very much impaired, which, apart from all other reasons, is one of the main reasons you do not want to give any statements on the scene. And you want to take a good day to just recover from the shock of the event, gather your thoughts, and with a lawyer, go through the sequence of events that he will then record for you and make sure that only the relevant parts are presented to the police in a truthful manner. And that's why don't make statements on the scene, guys. Don't get pressured. It's much better if you're dealing with a shitty cop to be arrested and then make statements later rather than try to avoid arrest because you're scared of it and then making incriminating statements because you are in no position or condition to say anything of the sort on the scene. Don't do that. And we'll talk other gun stuff. No, hang on a sec. My opinion on the tax increase for the vaccine, adding injury to insult to more injury and insult, that's really what this is. We're sitting with a government where the president and all the ministers combined and deputy ministers are costing us in excess of 150 to 160 million rand a year. That's excluding other benefits. That's just their salaries. Okay, so with benefits included, you could probably triple that. So we're looking at 400 to 500 million rand a year in all likelihood that these fucking people who messed the process up in the first place, stole the money or misappropriated or misspent or God knows what else. This is what they're earning. And now they want to introduce an additional tax or levy or whatever to fund the vaccine procurement. I'm like, I'm sorry, you guys fucked up. How about you forfeit your salaries for an entire year because you can all certainly afford it, and you pay for it out of that budget. And just let's not even talk about bailing SAA out and all the other bullshit that's going on. It doesn't. It makes me want to fang slanger. It makes me spitting mad. Something non-COVID, watching interesting docuseries on the KKK. In the golden era 1920s, they had so much power and were the money behind prohibition and first gun control in the US. Indeed, that's a very interesting story. The origins of modern gun control in the US, and we're talking about after the Civil War era, which is like 1865, 1870, the majority of it were based on racist foundations. The Democrats and the Democratic Party and people who were really not keen on black people having the same civil rights as white people in America did not want black people to exercise their right to keep and bear arms, their constitutional right to keep and bear arms in the United States. And that is, without even having to research it too deeply, that's the origin of gun control in the US. And funny enough, if you look at the Peace Preservation Act of 1876, I think, in South Africa, enacted by the Cape Colony back then, that was, I think, our first really modern attempt at gun control legislation. And it was, again, if I can summarize, we don't want black people to have guns. That was the entire angle on that. So it's the same story everywhere. And I think when people finally wake up as they are to the fact that gun control is bullshit, and it has never had its origins or foundation in common sense or rationality or love for your fellow human being. That's kind of the awakening that we really need. Jay, what about a beach where a cop car got stuck? Oh, that was on, that was near Milnerton, I believe. I think it was Sunset Beach. Let's go beaches where it'll take months to remove cars and go swim there. You might even be able to make a cock thief. Yeah, I don't know what actually happened to that Bucky. I'm pretty sure the sea got to it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the sea gets underneath the bonnet, the seawater, and it gets there where the engine and all the funny bits is, that should be extensive damage, if not a write-off, because engines and other components, I don't think like seawater very much. I don't suspect so, but I'm waiting for a real man with knowledge of vehicles to chip in and tell me if I'm wrong or right. Right or wrong. Voorstier, good evening. Goeienaand. Good to see you, sir. Johan Kreers, 2 cents. And it's kind of blocking my face, but we'll just keep it up there. Why not? My 2 cents. SA is unique in that the SA government has an agenda to wipe out the whites. I'm not 100% on board with this, but let's carry on. Ramaphosa said he's going to use the virus to restructure and equalize the economy. Now, the interesting thing about this is I don't actually believe at all in the fact that they're after white people. I believe they're after everyone who is independent, everyone who's an entrepreneur, everyone who's middle class. Ultimately, this country is not going to be divided by white versus black. I think I called it a while back, and I'm feeling more confident about it every day. It'll be between pro-freedom versus anti-freedom. It'll be versus pro-government versus anti-government type alignment. And the reason I'm saying that is I've seen more white businesses and more white people being snitched on by other white people who speak the same language as them, who live in the same areas, and who supposedly go to the same churches. And it has been a disgusting display in government fellatio that I've ever seen from people who would otherwise probably say things like, you can't trust the ANC with anything, would be the first people to pick up the phone and say, daai restaurant daar bedien alcohol, gaan fok hulle op, hulle moet in die tronk gestop word. I've seen so much of that. I've seen people say things, people of my own tribe say stuff like, if you go outside without a mask, that you should be hung from your neck from a lamppost until you're dead because you're a murderer or an attempted murderer. I don't think ethnicity figures into this anymore. We're beyond that now. Marxism doesn't know color after all. Marxism only knows murder. It only knows, I should say, dispossession. And it's also a case of if expropriation without compensation happens, the land won't be taken from white people and given to black people. Land will be taken from white people and given to government, who will then do with that land whatever they want. And if they give it to black people to farm, they'll be serfs, essentially. It'll be like a feudal system where those people are the slaves to the government. That's exactly what Marxists want. That's what they did to the Ukrainians after wiping out the kulaks. It's all part of the game. It's all part of it, and that's how it's worked. The crypto, by the way, Werder, has been amazing. Bitcoin has been... the value's through the roof, but it's sustaining it. Now, it's a digital asset with no underlying tangible thing you can touch, but it's become a safe haven in the sense that governments can't kill it. They've tried to figure out ways to kill it, and it's too decentralized and too anonymous and too well established for them to do so now. And the more government talks of killing Bitcoin, the more valuable it becomes. So they must carry on with it. They certainly must carry on with it. Herman, since I applied, how do I build my own turbine engine? Well, I'm not an aeronautical engineer, but you can definitely burn paraffin in a jet engine because Jet A1 is essentially a type of paraffin. So yes, it might cut your journey time, hopefully your journey time in half, if not by more than that. Like, how fast do you drive, Herman? Yeah, the brew nails it. This is exactly my concern as well, is the lack of facial recognition, facial, the fact that kids aren't exposed to facial expressions because of the mask, which effectively takes away half your face, and your mouth is a hugely expressive part of it. That is part of the problem. When kids are terrified of people coming from the front when walking outside. Yep. Yeah, that's part of the whole thing. We have to become more disobedient, advising freedom. Exactly. Big up to the defender. Why did the dead guy with the gun remain on scene? Not too clear. Exactly. Why didn't he run away? He may be justified. Exactly. That's it. It was 2015 April, outside Somerset West on a plot. And what can I say? Ripples wise, it was my first rodeo, and thus far my only rodeo at it. I had no idea how the system works. I had no idea what to expect. I slept like a baby at night simply because I was so stressed during the day, and it took me a long time to make peace with the process that I was being subjected to. At times I felt victimized by it because you have the sword hanging over your head. Well, it took 3 years for them to finalize the docket. 3 years. It was lost several times. Investigation officer changed several times because the one got promoted, the other one got moved around. It was a nightmare. My gun was in the SAP-13 locker for 3 years. Diane Kohler-Barnard from the DA still helped me get it out because they took so long to get their shit together. It was, yeah, it was rough. Good cop. Thanks for tuning in. You're welcome to correct me where I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm just, what's the word? Passing on what I was told. The Vector SP1 is a good pistol. I believe that the Beretta spares may actually be interchangeable with most of it. Obviously, Vector having gone titties uppies quite some time ago, it isn't manufactured anymore, and there are probably still some spare parts floating around for it, so it should be a gun you can still keep running. If you can get one for a reasonable price, and if it's not something you want to carry per se, I'd say it's a good option. But for carry options, there are better supported, more modern options. Yeah, pretty much. Pule, Gideon, do you think gun control is dying in SA? There seems to be consensus among South Africans that SAPS is useless and they can't protect anyone. There is a massive awakening amongst population groups that previously were very hostile to guns, and especially women. And that is something that is so big that even I can tangibly feel it and see it and experience it from interactions, from people who were previously very anti-gun asking me how can they get it, and not just one or two cases. And that's not just me. It's a case of the fastest growing demographic amongst Durban gun shops, and this has been confirmed to me by several dealerships there, is young black professionals under the age of 30 who want to get guns for self-defense, and about a third of them are women. This is something that's unheard of. So it's definitely getting there, and Gun-Free South Africa's major thing has always been that gun owners are racist white men who want to cling to their guns to oppress the rest of the. That was the one political angle, and then the other, of course, is that guns are dangerous. That's their new thing. People aren't believing it because there frankly isn't any evidence of it. I mean, imagine GFSA propaganda says to you, guns are dangerous, you have a better chance of being killed with your own gun than using it that old lie of theirs. But let's say you are a reasonably intelligent person and you just see a hell of a lot of media reports about people successfully using guns defensively, and you go, right, clearly these people aren't like John Wick, so it can't be that hard. And then you also read stories of people. You don't read a lot of stories of people being disarmed and shot, like very few, if any. And you read a lot of stories about unarmed people who completely cooperate with their assailants getting horribly murdered or raped, whatever. at some point, you start to put two and two together and say, but this myth doesn't work for me. Now, a lot of people don't think, but I mean, many of them do still. And I think that's the thing. That's part of it. Colin, thank you. It's I do enjoy the interaction. Sam, good evening. Valerie, I'm visiting my daughter in Johannesburg. I live in the Swartland. You have no idea how strict house rules are. My son-in-law is in safety, so I go with the flow because he cares for the family. Yeah, I can only imagine, Valerie. It's a bit awkward under such circumstances. Just shut up and phone lawyer. Yep, exactly. I hate taxes, taxation, theft. Indeed, it is. We can put that on a shirt. A docket must be opened by the investigating officer. He then sends dockets for all sorts of areas for decision. That's the procedure. NTA will decide whether to charge a person. Exactly. Which is the golden rule: is a docket is a docket is a docket. There really is no difference except in terminology. Hi, Brian. Good to see you here. So hang on, it's 40 minutes in. Let me just quickly do my plug. If you like what I do, if you want to buy me whiskey, if you don't want to super chat me or anything like that on the channel, you can zapper me there. It's on my face. You can pause it, rewind, whatever, and do that again. There's a SnapScan code, which is the exact same procedure. And then you get the Paratus web store where you can buy my merchandise, like these glasses, which I really shouldn't model because my ears are skew and they look terrible, but they're actually really, really cool. They're polarized. They've got the little Paratus dingus on them, both sides, and they're wooden framed, laminated by Zakharov New Damage Eyewear. They're really cool, and I dig them. I wear them every day. So that's my plug, and we'll get back to the comments. That was the commercial break, folks, so to speak. Let me just get back to is there an update on the Hunter's case on Green? No, there isn't, unfortunately. My thoughts on it is, if you have a green license and you don't have a competency, just go do the competency training just in case. Just in case someone somewhere capitulates or stabs you in the back, or there's a ruling that goes against you, because we know how the courts are. Just get your competency training out the way so that you have those certificates, and even go as far as applying for it. You haven't applied for a license, you haven't done anything, you haven't tried transferring yourself across to the white card system or anything like that. But if the shit then hits the fan, then at least you can. You're in a position immediately you can, if you do not already have a competency certificate. So maybe get the proficiency training out the way. Exactly. Okay, seawater in the engine is a write-off. I kind of suspected as much. Now, whether or not the seawater actually got into that particular Hilux's engine, yeah. Also remember that the Top Gear Hilux wasn't maintained by the South African Police Service, so that might be a thing. I'm not sure. Yeah, I just like how we destroy the beach ecosystem during turtle breeding season with all these fucking off-road vehicles and armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles and God knows what else. Because, like, fuck the environment, right? It's all about keeping the surfers away from the COVID sea or something. I don't even understand this. It's so petty. All of it is so petty. Jay, Ramaphosa decided to deploy 2,170 odd army fucknuts at an expense of 95 bar for January to enforce Rona rules. Yet public personnel like police who do their jobs, like teachers, like doctors, do not get an increase in the poultry sales for the next 4 years. My prediction, if you think government employees are useless now, just wait till they start to reduce salaries, overtime, God forbid, retrench. Now, if you go to a really dysfunctional African country like Nigeria, corruption there is so entrenched because of this exact problem. You can't get anything done without a bribe. But if you're willing to pay the bribes, all your shit gets sorted out, move it quick. And I'm not in favor of corruption at all. But my position is very simple. We either fight corruption, we annihilate it completely, and we run a transparent civil service where service is delivered. We either do it that way, or we embrace the fact that we're an African nation. We are as corrupt as fuck, and those who are capable and willing to pay for their shit to get sorted out get their shit sorted out. We need to make a decision what kind of country we want to be. Do we want to be super and squeaky clean, where everything works, or do we want to be corrupt as fuck, where things work as long as you're willing to bribe people to make your problems go away? The latter option is obviously not ideal, but I mean, if it's one of the two extremes and you have to pick only one, and extreme number, like the first one where everything works, is not an option, so you're kind of stuck in this horrible middle where everything is a fuck up, then, you know, let's rather have a proper fuck up. But anyway, that's not something I have control over. That's something that either will happen or won't happen. Anyway, what do we call the pro-freedom version of a car? And that's very easy. We call them Mareike. And thumbs up if you agree with me and all that sort of things. I see I was beaten to this already. That's like 2 comments down. I shouldn't have this many guns. No, Bernard, you should. In fact, I think you should have more. Phone me tomorrow and we'll see if we can sell you something. Thank you, Reinhard. I can't remember which nail I hit in the head, but hopefully it was one of them. Yeah, they would be terrible, right? They really would be. I wouldn't trust the government anywhere near. Yeah. Scrolling through comments, I lost my train of thought thanks to Brian bringing blowjobs up. That was just uncalled for. Thank you, though. Goodness gracious, I really did get behind on the comments. Bum, bum, bum. Elke tweede wit van jou Facebook. Maak nie saak nie. Dis die wet. Yeah, that actually makes a like vein in the side of my head twitch whenever I see it. The ANC hates all South Africans regardless of race. It's their only non-racial attribute, and it's so true. Best swimmer is watching Corin's trying to challenge Mareike on Facebook and getting owned in the process. Mareike is vicious. He takes no prisoners with us. None at all. It's beautiful to watch. Well, fuck you too, Brian, but thank you. It is true. I've no idea about building jet engines or maintaining them or anything. I just know they don't like bricks or birds going through them. No, it's not good. Bitcoin costs a lot of energy to mine, so it has real value similar to gold. This is actually true. The value is in the proof of work. It's scarce, indeed, only 21 million available in total, and it's expensive to get. So yeah, that's part of it. And it's a decentralized public ledger where everyone can see every transaction. So they don't know what the transactions are for, who the transacting parties is, but they can see there is a transaction that happened. So you can trace every Bitcoin or part of a Bitcoin from the day it was mined till where it is today. Another concern about children is, could wearing masks contain oxygen in the brain development phase? I believe there are serious concerns about this. I have not seen any published material on it or documentation, but I've heard enough pediatricians express that they're worried about it. So yeah, I believe it is a valid concern. Yeah, I heard about this. Good luck to the Chinese trying to teach the particulars. That's all I'm going to say. That's such a mean thing to say, Reinhard, but yes. Martin needs to get a Glock. No, we don't have to sell Glocks to everybody. We can sell them. There are other guns too. I'm like my Glocks. I'm an HK fanboy still. I like my Glocks, but I also like other guns. We can also sell Martin a Smith & Wesson or a whole bunch of things. Valerie, I'm Ofro. What farm would you recommend for self-protection? Well, Valerie, this is always a difficult one because it depends on, there are so many good options available. For women, I generally recommend stuff like the Glock 43s or the 48s because they are very compact. They are very friendly for smaller hands and shorter fingers. They are just really well designed guns. But if that's out of your budget, the Taurus G3C compact is also something that I would gladly sell to people. And CZ also makes wonderful guns, as does Beretta, although they're not so well supported. But anything that is a 9mm parabellum, that is modern, and that fits your pocket, I would consider a viable option, if I could summarize it that way. Not all consumers are the same, but I would generally not recommend anything in a smaller caliber than 9mm, and larger caliber and handgun also doesn't necessarily make sense. So that's my 2 cents. Sorry, Mareike just gave me a super chat. I'll go to CHS next week and see if Gideon can sell me a Glock. I will do my best. Thank you for the super chat, ma'am. I'll do my best to sell you a Glock because I know Mareike is not a Glock girl. She's most certainly a CZ girl. How's the Shadow license progressing, by the way? We never checked up, or I never asked you about that again. If I recall correctly, you did have a psychological debrief soon after the shooting. I think it's something not given enough airtime. I did. And I should have had more than one, because there were some underlying anxiety issues, not about the shooting, but about the process that I did not adequately address. And that caused me a lot of grief later, a lot of grief that I then had to deal with. And unfucking that situation a couple of years down the line is best avoided. And your first defensive shooting is by far psychologically going to be the worst one, by far. So if you are in such a thing, do not try to be the man and tough it out. The anxiety is real. Look, not everyone reacts the same way, but if the anxiety is there and if you are exhausted and if you have a lot of worry, go see a professional, go see a counselor, and go for those sessions, and go for as many sessions as you need to develop coping mechanisms and tools and all these sorts of things to ensure you safeguard and protect your mental health through the process, because that's super important. And it's a really neglected thing. And it's something I think that doesn't get spoken about enough. So Achad, thank you for actually bringing that up. That was a very, very, very good and valid point. Rebecca Davis of the Daily Maverick loves gun owners because we are all middle-aged white men with some sort of power fantasy. That was her tweet. I'll go dig. I just screenshotted it before she blocked me on Twitter. I still have Rebecca Davis's tweet. I'll put it up on the Telegram group and on the Facebook page just for shits and giggles because it was kind of funny. Melanie, totally agree about women and guns. More and more people realize you need to protect yourself because the cops and the government won't. Exactly, and they can't. Max Rosley, hail kick. Thank you for tuning in. The man behind Motivus. Motivus on Facebook. Track Max down. If you need a motivation written for you, he does them custom to your conditions. He does sterling work. I'm not trying to jinx you anything, Max, but your success rate is phenomenally high, which is pretty much close to 100%. He really knows what he's doing, and he's a really good guy to boot. Really, really good guy. Love you long time, Max. Want your babies. Let me just see what else. People in safety would have worked for the Gestapo a few years ago. Indeed, they would. Indeed, Verman as well. It's definitely the demographic shift is real. Very, very real. Yeah, I think buying elections aren't cheap, guys. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube, or are they going to ban me? I actually don't know. All that we do know, well, probably the overwhelming majority. Let's put it that way. The last stats we got about this was Sidney Mufamadi answering a question in Parliament in the late 90s when he was still an MP. I believe he may have been Minister of Police or something, and he was still alive. And he said that the amount of crimes committed by people with licenses was negligible. And someone then went and estimated it was like 0.000 something percent. So many decimals after, so many zeros after the decimal, there's not a lot of it. There are obviously cases of it happening. It does happen. But, if you have in excess of 200,000 to 300,000 crimes annually that may be committed by use of a firearm, contract crimes, because there's, I think, well over 1 million contract crimes every year. If 30% of those are guns, and that's like 300,000, if only 1%, if less than 1% of those are done by licensed guns, then yeah, it does happen, especially now that we've had so much corruption where gangsters have actually obtained licenses for guns. They've obtained them illegally. They've obtained them fraudulently. So they don't have a real license for them, but the license is real because they got it through corrupt system in the CFR. So that obviously skews the figures, because if you got like 50 gangsters with licensed guns that they illegally got and fraudulently got licensed, then that's going to count as a gun crime with a licensed firearm, isn't it? So yeah. Can someone ask him about the Piratas moonshine? Yeah, we'll start manufacturing our own stuff soon, hopefully. We'll get to that. Yeah, First Contact Security Solutions, which is myself and Jedvia's company, and Stefan's also involved. But we're not doing we are not doing residential security. Well, not yet. We're still going through the whole CERO accreditation process. But please give us a like and a follow on LinkedIn and on Facebook. First Contact Security Solutions. That's basically it. Max Rossi, I've prepared the speech. Your Glock is best Glock. My Glock is best Glock. All Glock is very handsome. This is science. Thank you. And we can put that on a fridge magnet or a bumper sticker or a t-shirt, to be honest. Herman, brother, I was online at 6 a.m. this morning at the cops to renew my license when I was second in line. I left only at 9:30. Yeah. Why the fuck did you get this? They probably only let you into the station at like 8:30, and then they take 40 minutes to take your fingerprints and stuff. But it is a nightmarish process because everything is still paper and ink. We are still stuck in the 1980s. It's like the internet doesn't exist, and SAP's management hasn't a clue about it. They really don't. I'll tell you horror stories on Whiskey Friday about the so-called cybercrimes division. Yeah, like if you think they want to win the war on cybercrimes, but they already lost it before they even pitched. So yeah. Yeah, I know. No robbery. It is indeed. But is it a problem or is it just a lubrication? I don't know. I have to admit, I had a fun time when I was still doing contract work in Africa, because you kind of factor in the bribery into your budget, and you at least know that most of the time your problems will go away, even though the problems are sometimes created by the very same people who then you pay money to make them go away. So it is extortion, to be honest. Stefan Mareike would be your go-to girl for this, to be honest. Really, really, she's the CZ specialist. Sorry, I'm late, so not a problem, Astral Falcon. Good to see you. I'm way behind on the comments by about 10 minutes. Oh dear. Bernard is just leaving this there for us all to drool over. Robert, it's never a bad idea to go buy gold. I've never heard a single person say they've regretted buying that Kruger Rand or whatever form of bullion. But do buy bullion, never buy collectible coins or any of that stuff. Buy bullion and that's it. CJ, I see you're here. I don't know what happened to your comment, but good evening. And I second everything you say. Max is being sarcastic, by the way. This is unfortunately a thing we deal with all the time, where you get some slightly misogynistic person that strongly holds this view and gets very upset when challenged. But yeah, this is as stupid as it is. So do not. 38 Special is probably the worst gun to get for a woman, because it has a shitty, extremely heavily double action trigger. It is difficult to reload. It has a very short sight radius, so it's difficult to shoot accurately, as therefore inherently unpleasant to train with, and will become a paperweight and white elephant locked up in a safe. Please do make contact, Valerie. You know where to find me. Searches Guns and Ammunition in Somerset West. Just getting through the comments while we've got a minute left, and then I need to bail. Oh dear. Hang on. I see Max already got into trouble for that comment. Nice, dude. You come here like at your own risk. the 3 battles before the fight, the actual fight, and after the fight with legal ramifications. And be prepared for all 3 of those fights. The psycho debrief was seriously lacking in the SADF days and still left scars to all who've been involved in border contacts. And I can well believe it, because it's such an important thing. It's so neglected. And I think, and you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also a very much tough guy cultural element to it, like real men don't see psychologists, which is a very damaging position, I think, to take on it, because you really ought to if you've been through hell of a trauma. DRD Overland, I hope to God he does. I hope he pardons Julian Assange, and I hope he pardons Edward Snowden. That would be horrendously amazing. It would make the left's head explode. Hi, Joshua. The pooch is doing great. He comes to work with me, but his girlfriend wasn't there today, so we had to take him for a nice long walk where he got to play with his friends. So, yeah. If you want babies, don't get the jab. It seems like good advice. Corlia, goeienaand. Dankie vir die inloer. You contact Max via his website, Motivus. Find him on Facebook, and all his contact, right, Mozzie, all the contact details are there. Ammo shortage in America is a stuff up. But fortunately, we still source a lot of stuff from Europe. We source a lot from China, and we still get the odd American ammo consignment coming in here or there. Let me just check what else. Yeah, that's the name of it. They've been very slow processing non-amnesty applications. It's been an absolute nightmare, but do hang in there. I'm just finishing the last comments because we're a good minute over time, and that's fine. I just want to say cheers to you guys properly and just make sure there's not anything crucial I missed. Okay, yeah, the card printing has also been a disaster. Let's not even forget about that little drama, which they claim the sort of Glock 43 start to rest on the slide. Easy Ox, Q20, lots of love and lube is my best advice to deal with any form of oxidation. Is CJ going to get so tanked on for this comment? I don't know what Annika is responding to, but that's Max's better half, and she's here to make sure he behaves, which he should. Thank you for being here, Annika. I really appreciate you tuning in. Annika is also lawyer lady, and congratulations on your position at AfriForum. They are definitely richer for having you join them, Annika, and you're going to have one hell of a career there, I'm sure. Lots of good things happening. Yes, Brian, I will publish your article on muscle memory. I'll do it this week, I promise. Like, I'm running out of week, but if it isn't done by Whiskey Friday, you can tank on me for it. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Just Gert, most of the time from doing border camps, clearing out and going back to work, did not leave a lot of time for debrief. Yeah. And it was also not really prioritized by government from what I gather. There we go. Fantastic. And by the way, Ahmad's question, any of you guys ever mention of a FEG 9mm Parabellum in Hungary? I think I have actually, but I will go research this. And we'll bring it up on Whiskey Friday on Friday night, 8 o'clock. Same place, same channel. You guys know the drill. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. It was wonderful being here with you, and have a safe rest of what remains of the Tuesday night, and see you all again soon. Thanks for the super chats and everything else. Have a lucky evening. Cheerio. And